Hey, what's up, guys? This is Mage, and I'll be bringing you the third episode of Game Night tonight. This is actually almost early morning hours for me, so you'll have to just excuse the delirium. However, I have with me Mog Skynet, one of the newer free-for-all players to take the scene relative compared to Magadansky and Renault. However, he has shown great results in the past few seasons, and I think it'll be really interesting to kind of see his perspective on free-for-all versus that of Renault, Magadansky, some of the older players. In addition, we actually just finished casting one of our very early FML games. I mean, going back to Season 5 and before. I don't want to give a spoiler on which game it is, but that'll be out on Sunday, so we'll be able to tie in a little bit of reference there, and Mog will have some frame of reference as well for what's changed between now and then, although obviously a bit of a limited sample size. But Mog, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Mog. I don't know what to say. I've been playing Warcraft for way too long, since 2002 or 2003.
Did you start with Reign of Chaos?
I did start with Reign of Chaos. I didn't really play online much during Reign of Chaos. It was I started playing online towards the end of Reign of Chaos, and when you could creep to level 6, and
the glory days.
Yeah, the glory days. Actually, I was really bad, so I could never get to level 6. I just died. But it was fun. I was just a little kid back then, really. And I still play now after taking a lot of breaks and stuff. But I played mostly solo. I didn't get really into free-for-all until Season 14 of FML. So that's pretty recent, I mean, for how long I've been playing.
Yeah, absolutely. And we should probably explain what type of game format we're playing here. We searched for both a ranged team and random team for about a half hour. However, we're not even filming, I guess. Recording this rather late at night due to Mog's and my work schedule. So we were unable to find any games. We tried some custom games, but none of those worked out. So we actually decided we'd make an interesting challenge here, and we're doing 6v2 against the computers, which are all set on random and insane. And for any semi-competent players, this probably wouldn't be that big a challenge, but this is Mog and myself, so there's every possibility we're going to royally screw this up, and honestly, that'll probably be better for the entertainment value than anything else.
I'm playing off-race, too, so it'll be even better.
Yeah, I mean, you're playing Orc, though. We've discovered through Renault's interview that Orcs are evil and pretty much should just be taken out early on, so maybe I should actually rush you.
You probably should. Then you could go 1 versus 6, and it wouldn't be as bad if you lost.
And you wouldn't have to worry about your micro while being interviewed, so it would just be better all around. I've come up with a new strategy. Okay, why don't you give us a little bit of background on your solo career first, I suppose? I mean, could it be considered a career? How competitive were you?
I was not a very competitive player. I got into solo and really the whole league scene in general through a team called Skynet, hence where my name comes from. And I wasn't good enough to be a player on the team. It was one of the top American teams at the time. We were in the WC3L qualifiers, and we almost qualified actually, but I kind of started helping out with the management stuff, and then that's how I stayed on the team.
Trust me, that's how I stayed on every team I was on.
Organizing
is important.
That helped me kind of get to know the other managers. I got to know players that were much better than me, and it helped me as a player too, because I could watch a lot of high quality games and learn from them. And so eventually the manager left, and I tried to kind of rebuild the team for about 2 or 3 years, and we were never as good as it was, but we were still a decent USA team. We played in Warpex's league, WCO, for a few seasons. We played in some other smaller North American leagues. So that's kind of how I got into it. Eventually, I started playing as well as managing because I didn't have enough good players. So
at least you're honest about it.
And I had a very poor record at first, and I was playing random. I just basically cheesed every game, and that's why I never got good. So I quit for about a year, came back. A team called NG picked me up. I can't remember who was in that team that I know nowadays.
Pureby was.
Pureby and some others. And that kind of helped me get back into the scene.
And you have a rough time frame of when this was?
Yeah, that was like 2008, 2008 probably.
Okay.
And that was when I wasn't managing anymore. I was just a player, so I was focusing on just playing, and I was doing better. I was actually one of their best players, so it was kind of like.
Who were you playing during these times? I mean, who were the active opponents for you in the 2008 era? Because that was when it was starting to tinker off, but hadn't really died away yet.
Yeah, it was. The best players in North America were like Duck, Rebuke, Skynet was pretty good. Let's see, Holy Human. It was mostly humans. It was like Furphy, Holy Human. Gosh, why can't I think of his name? I don't know. It was also like when do you remember like OC and Cowie and all of them were still playing?
Yep.
So there was some good team. Yane was one of the top players. I don't know how I could forget him. So there was still some good competition. And
were you playing solely within the U.S. or?
Yeah, the only really international league I played in was WCO, and I didn't ever really do very well there.
Fair enough.
We played like we played against like DKH, and they were pretty good.
You know, I've heard of a few of them.
Yeah, I imagine. Yeah. So yeah, I played against like Rain and Star Shaped, and there was some Undead that was really good at that time on the team. I can't think of his name, but there were still a lot of good players. I was on the lower tier. I remember like this was back when like War Chief Rich was also a manager, Splash player, and we were like on the same skill level. And now he's way better than me.
Change.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I played like Yaws. He was way better than me at the time. He's like semi-pro. So that's where I was.
Fair enough. What are some of your cooler experiences from playing back then?
My best experience was I beat Yane on the ladder. This was like the highlight of my life because I was random still at the time, and I went Farseer first and Wive Tech. I remember this game very well, and I beat him, and I was like, oh my gosh. I posted on WCR as like a look who I beat replay, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, you beat Yane. But I qualified for the pro ladder on the North America side, and didn't make it to the top 8
16.
or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah, 16, whatever. I was like around the 40, 50, so I wasn't that great, but
that's better than I did. I usually qualified for it and then finished in like the 80s.
Yeah. I mean, I had won a few games, so I beat like Holy Human. I think I beat Duck one time. He beat me like 10 times, but
So you mentioned that was back when you were playing random. When did you switch over to playing the elf that we all adore today?
At that time I had switched to elf full time.
Okay.
When I was on NG, I don't remember exactly, but at some point I decided to switch because with I pretty much had like a rush strategy with every race, and I just did it over and over and over again. Because it's really hard to get good with all 4 races and all the matchups if you're playing legitimately. And I kind of realized that, and so I decided, well, I'm good with Huntresses, and I'm good at going Ancient Protector rushing, so I just decided to Ancient Protector rush against every race, and did that full time as Night Elf.
Fair enough.
So I still wasn't very good, but I was very good with Huntresses. I took after like Cowie, OC, Axlap to some extent, and kind of just adopted that mass hunt style.
Yeah,
that
you know,
became
when
really
you can't
popular
win legit,
actually.
then
So
just go ahead and cheese.
yeah, exactly.
Eva would be proud.
Well, I mean, I didn't you can't manip in solo, but
Well, you can. It's just not very effective. We should clarify.
come on, observers, help!
So what would you say? I mean, I guess did you kind of fade out of solo around that time? And if so, how did you get into free for all?
So what happened was, StarCraft 2 was released, and so my team, I was still playing with NG at the time, and everyone switched over to StarCraft 2. And I went over with them and we tried to league StarCraft 2 a little bit. I had some bad stuff happen in real life, and so I got really depressed and started playing like 10 hours a day. And it was kind of like, in the back of my mind, I was like, I just want to go pro in StarCraft 2. And I was pretty good at one point at the beginning, but I ended up getting carpal tunnel from playing too much and not having very good like wrist. I don't know what's the word I'm looking for. I didn't have good health, so
Fair enough.
I had carpal tunnel really bad, and I just kept playing anyways, and it got to the point where I couldn't play anymore. And so I couldn't go pro. And
That would be a good reason.
I decided StarCraft 2, I hit the wall where, like, with StarCraft 2, if you can't micro or macro, you know, if you don't have enough APM, you just can't really ever get better. And I had hit that point where, like, with my wrist, I couldn't get any better. So I went back to Warcraft 3 because I missed it anyways. It's a fun game. And I was like, well, in Warcraft 3, I don't have to have as much APM. I just, you know, I can have better strategy, things like that. And I started playing again. And Warpax, I don't remember where, Warpax like found me online one day and was like, we started chatting, and he's like, hey, you should play in this league that I run. And I'm like, well, I don't ever play free for all, but I've played, you know, Battle.net free for all. Like, it's like I'm probably okay at it. So he let me, you know, go straight into the league, which was a mistake. And
And this was around season 14. You
and
said,
that was
correct?
season 14. That was the first season I played in, and didn't do very well.
Yeah, and so we've done a brief interview with you, but
Yeah.
obviously we weren't able to expand on everything we'd have liked to at the time. So what were some of your first experiences with Free For All then when you joined? Also, did you just lose your computer?
I
Lose your
did.
computer?
There's 3 of them, and I tried to fight them all with 50 supply.
Fair enough.
Didn't go so well. But what was your question? Sorry.
No problem. So some of your first experiences in Free For All.
Well, okay, so I had some free-for-all experience. I played on Battle.net on US West in free-for-all back maybe 2006-ish. Like, not competitively, I was still playing competitively in solo, but free-for-all was like fun, and I kind of enjoyed it. So I thought I had like some experience, but I didn't really, because it's totally different playing on Battle.net
Yep.
than it is in FML. And so I didn't know anything about like chatting really effectively, or like the whole like you should get gold before you attack people. And so literally I had no experience. I didn't watch any games. I just went into my first FML match and was like, I'm gonna hit everybody. And Stephen Razor raged at me. I think I talked about this in my interview.
Not
But
an uncommon experience.
yeah. Yeah, so I just kind of had that solo player mentality, and I was like, well, I'm better than this guy, so I'll just beat him, you know? Like, literally that's what I was
Obviously.
thinking. And I did win my 1v1 against him, but then I felt bad because everyone was flaming me and let him live, and then I lost. So,
The other mistake, feeling bad.
I mean, no, I played horribly because I just was hitting him and I had no strategy. I was like, I'm gonna go tinker hunts and
And we'll go
win.
from there, see what happens.
That's gonna be good somehow. Yeah, it didn't work out, but I had fun, and I learned a lot that season. I didn't win any games, but I got involved in the scene. I missed, like, what I liked about FML was I really missed that like community aspect.
Mhm.
You know, I had been involved in the league scene for so many years that when I had been out of it for maybe a year, and I really had kind of missed that actually. So it was really cool to get back into it and see like that Warcraft was still like alive. And do you need me to help right now?
Nah, I don't think so.
I'm gonna come help you. There's
Okay.
a lot of them there. I have like no units anyway, so
Good to know that you're going to come help with no units. Appreciate it.
I have Bloodlust though.
Well, if you can ever get over to my units, that'll be helpful. Oh yeah,
Nope.
there are. They kind of all are here. We should probably back
Yeah.
up a little.
I'm about to die. I have no... Shoot.
You have a TP?
Oh, I do. Okay.
Okay. Just checking on that. Yeah, so...
Oh my gosh. My bad.
Well played, sir. Well played. So yeah, I mean, I think the community is kind of what most people come to enjoy in FML. I got a healing ward behind it, by the way.
Wait.
And so you said you didn't win any season games in that season.
I didn't win any game.
But everybody
I got-
remembers their first win. So when was your first FML win?
My first FML win was in the qualifiers of season 16, and it was on Sanctuary against Persuade and Dark Flame Master and
Rectify.
some other guy. Rectify. Well, yeah, Rectify, and then so I don't remember the fourth player, but I played okay. Persuade helped me win, basically. But
Well, that was nice of him.
it was still like I felt like I was playing better. You know, I had better strategy, and I wasn't just like, I'm gonna attack everybody. That was actually, I kind of switched by that point. People were like, you should hoard and not attack everybody, so I started hoarding. And I remember that game I had like more gold than I probably have ever had in any game. So, yeah, it was fun. I remember like some
Wanna give me some
close
gold?
wins. Yeah, I have a lot of gold.
Thank
I forgot. I'm like playing free for all and not.
I noticed.
Talking about gold, I have like 3,000.
Yeah. So how did Persuade help you win that game? Did he just help Team Dark Flame Master down a little too much?
Yeah,
or?
so I was Night Elf, I had a Tinker and some other stuff, and Persuade was human, and obviously Dark Flame Master was Night Elf, and he had a Dark Ranger. He had like his typical, you know, Dark Ranger or Panda, all that crap. And gosh, I'm so bad at multitasking, like trying to talk to.
It's alright.
So Persuade just started like tanking basically Dark Flame Master's base, and I went on the other side. We teamed him really hard. Dark Flame Master got pissed at Persuade. They started like kind of suiciding each other. Persuade swears that Dark Flame Master was suiciding him or something like that. I don't really remember. All I remember is I won.
Life was good.
I had like Tinker, Panda, Priestess of the Moon. I think I was going that combo still at that point. And I was just out scouting everything. I'm like, cool, these guys are gonna kill each other, and I'm gonna win. And I mean, I was like a huge underdog, of course, because I hadn't won any games, and Dark Flame Master was an unknown, but everyone was like, oh, this guy's really good.
He's the next coming of Christ.
Yeah, he's like the next up and coming guy. And then I won. It was pretty cool. I felt like I was actually good.
Yeah, I mean, I think getting your first FML win is actually one of the cooler feelings in Warcraft 3 that you can get. I mean, it's right up there with getting your first solo league win and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's definitely was cool, and that was when I like felt like up to that point I was like, wow, I'm not good enough to be like competitive, you know. And after I won a game finally against good players, it wasn't like, oh, I just beat 4 unknowns.
Yeah.
I felt like, wow, I can actually maybe win some games. I didn't win any games that season, but I felt like I could. And that season, I remember I had a lot of games where I was close. You know, where I was like, oh, I had a level 8 Tinker and he was down to a few buildings. You know, I just couldn't pull it out. But once you get to that point, you feel like you're competing at least.
Yeah.
So.
And so, let's see, that was season 15, I presume, that you got your first win?
It was actually 16. I didn't qualify for season 15.
Okay.
That's the one Rain one? Yeah, that's the one Rain one. I lost in the qualifiers and was like, oh, I'll try again next year, or next season.
Yeah, which is almost a year, I mean.
Oh my gosh, everyone just teleported on top of me.
Yeah, they tend to do that.
I keep forgetting there's like 6 of them. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna attack this guy.
I'll just draw some pressure off of Mage. Appreciate the effort, buddy.
What do you do when you don't have like 10,000 gold? Like, how do you macro?
I don't know, I'm struggling right now.
Well, I can't give you any more gold because I'm low now.
Ooh, I should have charmed that Kodo instead of the Wyvern. That was
You
not a
have
good call.
charm? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I was actually doing stuff this game.
Oh, I'm just like sitting AFK and talking.
It's okay, I noticed.
Thanks. I remember Orc has really good casters. I thought I'd get a few.
I'd appreciate that.
Maybe help out a little bit.
You know, if you want to, but don't sweat it.
Okay,
Okay, so you didn't make season 15, and you did make season 16 after
I
that.
did make 16. That
Sorry.
was the one I.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
you made
that's
season
one.
16. And how far in was your win? I mean, was this when you kind of became a little more competitive, or what exactly was the process here?
I wouldn't say I was competitive. I would say I won the game in the qualifiers, and I don't think I won any more games that season. But every game I was like doing okay. I shouldn't say it. The very first game of the season, I distinctly remember, was on Battleground, and Sexy rushed me, and then Maga hit me at the same time, and I died. And I was like, wow, what a horrible start to the season. And that was like, I actually wanted to win, you know? Before that, I was like, this is fun, I'll just play and be a part of the community. But by that point, I was like, wow, I actually want to win. Like, my competitive spirit had started. So, I didn't win any games, but yeah, I did okay. It wasn't bad. I wasn't like the worst player in the league. Let's put it that way.
That's good. Well, I might have been in that division, so it could have been me.
Yeah, I think you were in that season actually. So that's how you do.
Thanks, buddy.
Anytime.
So then, season 17, I presume. I mean, as you said, you just kind of went along, and was it season 18 where you really had your come out? I mean, I remember it became kind of, you just came out of nowhere, and all of a sudden it was like, oh wow, Mog is playing for real, and he's taking his game a step up.
It was not season.
What are you doing over there?
Oh, don't worry about it.
I may need to go in the replay and look at some of these.
You don't want to. I'm so happy the camera's not on me. I started winning in season 17. I made the finals of season 17. So let's see, season 16 I qualified, and then season 17 was when I directly qualified to the finals along with J33, and then that's when I had my really bad finals where Sexy toned me.
And so talk about that first finals experience. I mean, what was that like to go from being moderately successful at different points to, holy crap, I'm actually in the finals?
It was pretty cool. I felt like, honestly, as a competitive person, I was almost embarrassed at how, like, other people were viewing me as a competitor. Like, people were just, they would see me in their game and be like, oh, this guy's gonna be an easy tome. And I kind of took offense to that. And, I never was, like, outwardly outspoken about it, but in my head, I was like, I want to be better than this. I don't want to be someone's tome. I want to be, like, viewed as a threat.
Understandable,
And,
I think.
yeah, I mean, I'm sure any competitive person feels that way. But especially coming from, like, not successful solo player, but, successful enough to where I could win some games. It was really embarrassing to me to be like, wow, I'm really bad.
That first oh shit moment?
Yeah, that was like the, wow, I'm like the joke of the league almost. Like, not the joke, but like,
I'm not considered one of these strong competitors.
Yeah, you know what I mean. You know what I mean. Like, you don't win a lot.
Yeah, trust me, I know this very well. So what changed that season? I mean, what was it that kind of had you step up your game?
I started practicing more. I mean, it's really as simple as that.
Okay, and well, let's go back to when you say you started practicing. I mean, what does that entail for you?
Well, in seasons 15 and not 15, 14 and 16, when the ones I played in, I really, like, at that point in my life, I was really busy with real life stuff, and I wasn't like, I was just playing my FML game. So that was like, I wouldn't play a game for 2 weeks. I'd play one game, I'd lose, I'd wait till next week. So I started practicing, like, I was more active on the forums. I was finding people to, like, get custom games going with. I'm getting killed again.
Do you need help?
No, I'm teleporting out. But, yeah, so I started, like, people, this was back before the Play Free For All bot, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So people were still, like, on the chat channels, like, hey, let's get a game going if people are around. And I was starting to practice that way. I started watching more replays. I didn't watch a ton of replays still, but I watched more. More
That's
than none.
something. I mean, I think that's actually part of the problem a lot of people have is either they don't practice or they don't know how to practice. And you really have been a success case of how to practice for free-for-all. So I think a lot of people will find it interesting to see what you do for your preparation, study, that type of stuff.
I play on the, well, okay, nowadays. Do you want to know nowadays? Or
Yeah,
like
we can
back
do
then
then and now. I mean, I think both are very useful.
I'll go with then, so I stay in chronological order here. But then I was playing custom games with other FML players, and the more games you can play with solid opposition, anytime I could get a game with Rectify or Persuade or Magadansky or Sexy, was always helpful. Even though I was losing most of the time, I was getting a lot of experience, not even just in observing my own play, but I could go back and like watch what they did, or like, yeah, just kind of see how they play because they're the champions. Not all of them, but most of them. Sorry, Sexy. And Persuade, but yeah, it's very helpful looking at what good players do and realizing like it's not just about their micro or anything. Like they make better decisions than me, and they make better. Oh, I'm getting hit at 2 places. Cool. And they just things like that you can really incorporate almost immediately into your game. So once I did that, I think that really helped. I'm about to die, by the way.
You need me to TP to your main?
Yeah.
Alright, let me know when. I'm just going to try and haul this blue. I might force a few TPs as well.
Okay. They're just killing my expansion.
Okay, well let me know when they're at your main.
Sorry, I cannot micro and talk. I should just stop it. I can't micro, but can't micro and talk for sure. Well, when I was practicing, I started looking at more at my own replays also. A lot of people look at like, oh, well, I should watch other games, see what other people do that are better than me, and I was looking at it more like, what can I do to improve my own game? Because I had that solo player mindset where I was like, I'm good enough to, where
keep up with these people.
Should be able to keep up with them, but for some reason I'm not. So there's got to be something missing, and there was something missing. My strategy was bad. My game sense was bad. All that stuff really plays into it. So once I got better at that, and really started looking at my own style and my own what I can do better, that's when I started to improve.
Okay. I mean, I think that's fair, and I think that that's actually probably really helpful for a lot of people just trying to get into it. So, I mean, nowadays, if you were just starting and wanted to get a good base for free-for-all, what would you say is the most important thing that you can do to start improving?
I definitely think the most important thing is to watch higher level games. I think, and by higher level games, I mean, honestly, just watching FML games for the most part. And if you look at what those players are doing, you're probably going to be in okay shape because some people will say you just need to play more and you'll get better. And I disagree, actually. I think, practicing on Play Free For All bot nowadays, that's helpful. It's going to improve aspects of your game. But if you want to be really successful, you can't just do that because FML games just frankly aren't the same as, an 8-player bot game. So I think, okay, sorry, I thought that was a ward or something, or a shade blocking my expansion. I would say looking at other players, watching their games, seeing how they play, how they react to certain situations. I think that's the best way to improve at this point. And if I was a new player now, and you know, sprinkle in like playing on the bot also, because you have to look at all the different ways you can improve. You can improve your
absolutely.
micro, you can improve your game sense by watching games, you can improve your micro by playing games, you can improve your macro by playing. You know, it's not just one thing. That's what makes free-for-all so great, is one thing doesn't make you good. You can be the best solo player and lose because free-for-all is about more than just micro. You can be the best macro player and lose because if you have no micro, you're not going to get to that point in the game. So there's a lot of things that you need to work on. And nowadays, with I would say more manip-heavy games, it's even more important to have good free-for-all sense and good scouting. And those are things that playing on the bot, like, you don't need to scout. I mean, honestly, you just need to roll over your opponents or put yourself in a good position. Who cares if you don't know what's going on in the game? Because you can still win. But in an FML game, if you don't know what's going on, someone's gonna mass chat about who knows what, and you could believe it because you have no idea what's going on in the game, or your game sense is off. So those are things that I definitely think people need to improve on, and can improve on.
Okay, so that's all very helpful. What would you say, I mean, you're kind of in that moderate stage. You're not a brand new player, but you're also not one of those people that's been around forever. So what would you say are some changes you've seen in FML over the years?
Some changes. I'd say that
We must act.
I have to think about this one. I think actually micro is becoming more important skill. Back when I started, there were solo players that were playing free-for-all like Duck and Star-Shaped, Rain. I mean, Maga, of course, has good micro, sexy. But for the most part, like, there were still the older school players like Slythe and what's his name? Krupe? Krupp. You know, people like that honestly, they don't have good micro. So, but they were still competitive to some extent because they knew the free-for-all game type. Nowadays, like, I think you have to be able to micro a little bit.
So you don't think those players, if they came back, would be able to compete?
No, I mean, like, think about, obviously the cast we just did isn't out yet, but think about the last cast we did with the Marketplace game with Ebo, HTRT, I don't remember the other two players, but like the micro was very lacking.
That's true.
And I feel like if those players, I mean, HTRT is good, but let's take Ebo as an example. He kind of came back and tried to compete, but he couldn't really because he doesn't micro. He doesn't think that's an important part of the game. And with so many solo players switching to free-for-all, it's a really important part of the game. Just plain and simple, because, you know, you can get rushed out. Even if you have a huge gold advantage, even if you're fighting 2 versus 1, if you both don't micro at all, like a good micro player can still 2v1 you, or 1v2 you, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. So, along those lines, I mean, what would you consider to be the most important part of the game now,
I think
for winning?
I think still the most important part of the game is game sense. I think.
And what would you define game sense as for possibly somebody who hasn't really played as much free-for-all, or maybe doesn't play free-for-all and just watches these?
I would define game sense as knowing what's going on at any given point of the game. I think it encompasses a few things. It encompasses scouting. It encompasses what's the word I'm looking for? I almost said it encompasses game sense. It encompasses
Good definition there.
Thanks. Okay, it encompasses scouting. It encompasses things like knowing or being able to estimate other players' goal counts. It encompasses being able to realize when a player is just flat out lying or trying to manipulate you. Can't say that word. Things that through good scouting or just like I'm gonna use a sports analogy to help me out here. So like I play basketball. If anyone plays basketball, you look at like older players that still play in the NBA, even though they're not athletically as gifted as the younger players, they have a knowledge about the game that allows them to still compete at the highest level. What I mean is they just pick the right moments to do a certain thing, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
I mean, that goes for really any sport, but and I think Warcraft is no different. You look at players that are smart, they have good strategy, they have good map awareness. Those are words I was looking for earlier.
Well, it's good to know you'll get them eventually.
Yeah. Things like that allow you to win games. Even if you're losing every fight, you can still win the game because you're able to manipulate situations to benefit you, I guess would be a good way to put it.
Okay, that's fair.
Based on your own knowledge of the game, based on the state of the game, things like that, you can manipulate easier. You're more manip-proof, I like to say. This was a term I used when talking to Red recently. A game where he got manipped pretty heavily because he didn't have good map awareness. He didn't really know what was going on at all parts of the game. Sure, his scouting may have been good late game, for example, but if he didn't know what was going on earlier in the game for all the players, then someone could say, oh, I've been fighting all game, I'm out of gold, when they haven't been. Or maybe they mined 3 mines and they hoarded them when you thought they were fighting, but you didn't scout, so you don't know. And you're just taking their word for it. And that's when people fall into the where they get manipulated too heavily because they think, oh, I know what's going on because I have shades all over the map now. But did you have shades earlier when the player was hoarding? Things like that people take for granted. They rely too heavily on what other people are saying, and they don't deduce for themselves what is really going on in the game.
So what would you say is the best way to improve it that specifically? I mean, you mentioned watching replays earlier. Is that the best way to do it for getting a better game sense, or is that something that maybe you have to play a few more games to get better at?
I definitely think you have to do both. I think if you play a lot, your game sense will improve a little bit, but if you don't know what things to look for, and that's the key of why you need to watch replays, is watching replays enables you to see points in the game that you would have never seen because you didn't have vision of, or you didn't have, it's so much easier to see when you can see what's going on from every player's point of view. So then if you are watching, you know what to look for in the sense of, like, wow, I would have never thought that this player went down to 50 at this point. And then just start chatting, and I thought, based on his chat, he was fighting. Things like,
yeah.
If you had just kept playing, you would have never gone back and seen that. So it would have kept happening to you, basically.
Along those lines, how important do you think knowing your opponents is? I mean, the Play Free For All bot has an anonymous ladder, which is nice. Battle.net had an anonymous ladder for the latter part of its career. But in FML, and specifically, you're going to be facing a lot of opponents at the same time. Multiple times in the same season, stuff like that. So what do you think about the idea of just getting to know your opponents, and what are some things that you can do to get better at predicting them, maybe?
I think it's very important to know your opponents. I think... Wow, there's creeps right here. I think that's a big part of free-for-all. For example, some players are just more prone to flat-out lying, whereas other players in Manip will be more like just a slight alteration of the truth. So if you know what those players' styles are, you can say like, okay, I can actually take what this guy's saying and actually use it advantageously. Because I know, he's still manipping, but it's not like he's just making up a bunch of bullshit. Like, he's just manipulating the truth a little bit. if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas some players, you honestly like they can chat and you should just ignore them because whatever they're saying, probably the opposite is happening.
But is that
so-
something that you could actually take to the bank? I mean, you say that kind of as a joke, but there are some players who really are going to be kind of lying 100% of the time. And would you ever use that information in your game? So you say, okay, they said this, it probably actually means this.
Yes, I would. And I would use it in a roundabout way. I would use it in my own manip because I would say things like, hey, you need to scout at this specific location, or I would scout better to verify what this person's saying.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you scout something, it's easier to get someone else to scout it. You know what I mean? It's different than saying like, oh, he's probably just lying. You actually have some proof to back it up. You can say, no, scout here, scout this. Like, he's pumping right now, so he was hoarding. Or look at these 5 hidden production buildings. Clearly he's got gold. Or why would he have those, you know, in a hidden location or something like that.
Yeah.
So you can use that information to your advantage, and it would be wise to. But I wouldn't use it in the sense of just chatting back. I mean, I guess I have in the past if I've gotten upset or something, I'm more likely to, but for the most part I wouldn't be like just lying back because this guy's lying, you know? You need to use that information and then get the other players on your side. So it is important to know their reputation because some players have good reputation and they can use that to lie rarely and have more people believe that lie because they don't lie often. Whereas some players lie all the time, and eventually everyone's going to know that, so they're not going to believe you.
So that actually brings up a rather interesting point, which is this idea of how to deal with manipulation. I mean, it's become such a, well, I don't want to say it's become, it is such a large part of the free-for-all game type. How do you know, you talked about it earlier, getting the scouting and stuff, but how do you deal with it when somebody is just aggressively manipulating against you and say somebody's falling for it? I mean, what's the best way to counter that? How do you keep your head and not just start yelling back at them or suicide? I mean, if you want to actually maintain the ability to win within the game.
That's the very tricky thing. I think it's almost like a game-by-game basis, but generally speaking, the best thing to do is not lose your head. You don't want to do something rash. Say maybe you suicide that person and then you dominate them in a fight. That's not going to help your cause. The other player then is going to see that and be like, oh, this guy was telling the truth. I need to team this guy. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Compared to maybe like it really comes down to scouting. If you have good scouting, then you can kind of manipulate the other person, or not manipulate, but point out the truth to the other person and have them discover it for themselves. And that's an important skill in free-for-all. Is it's not just that you need to know what's going on, but you need to help other people discover what's going on for themselves. You know, if they're getting manipulated heavily, because people aren't always going to just believe whatever you say. Even if you have good map vision, you know what's going on, they still might not believe you. You have to really help them see it for themselves, and if you get them on your side like that, then they're more likely to be like, oh, this guy was lying, I shouldn't just trust him. They might not just trust you either, but that's okay. You know, as long as they're not trying to aggressively team you 2 versus 1 to death.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then I guess kind of I got 2 more subjects I'd like to touch on. The first is a lot of people nowadays, or at least some people, feel that most of your wins are kind of come from behind wins where you, I don't want to say get lucky, but you go for the hide an army and then come back at the end to win. You don't have these dominating games that somebody like Rectify or Magadansky had in their prime. Do you have any comments about that?
Sure. I'm sure I can think of some comments. I don't think that those games are lucky. I think, well, there are a few games where I utilized another player's mistake, you could say. And so in a sense, maybe I got lucky that player made a mistake, but I think that I developed the skill to recognize when players make mistakes and use that to my advantage. And yeah, I don't really dominate games, and it's kind of hard to dominate games with Night Elf. I think Rectify was doing it pretty well, but other than him, I don't know anyone else that dominates games with Night Elf. And I don't have the micro to dominate games. I can't 1 versus 3. I can't. I mean, I'm flat out. So I know that about myself, so I'm not going to try to. I'm going to look at what my strengths are and win games the best way I can. I don't go into a game thinking, I hope someone kills me so I can come back from behind and win. Like, obviously, I don't go into that. But if that happens, I know, I guess, how I can turn the situation around.
And
or
how do you manage to maintain your calm and poise? I mean, your last game, you went down to 2 buildings, had like 10,000 gold or so, and didn't panic on it. Just maintained your cool and ended up rebuilding and getting an army to win. So, what is it about? What allows you to keep that mentality of don't give up, don't panic, don't start just mass chatting, but just kind of try to fly under the radar and pull a win off your style?
That's a good question. I'm just, in general, I'm a pretty even keel guy. I don't really ever get worked up over things. And I think having that in my personality kind of helps in my Warcraft gaming and free-for-all, because someone can totally like suicide me, and for not always, but for the most part, I'm not gonna just rage at that person. I'm gonna like see, in FML suicides aren't very common, so I'm gonna see like, okay, I'll let this person kill me until they're satisfied, because clearly they're not gonna stop. If I recognize the point where someone's not gonna stop hitting me until they're satisfied that I'm dead, I'm not going to try and mass chat to change that person's mind, because to me that person's mind is made up. I'm going to fight as best I can, but if I'm getting 2 versus 1 to the point where I know I can't win this 2 versus 1, and I think that one of those players isn't going to stop until I'm dead, I'm not going to blow through 10,000 gold to lose everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
In my mind, I think I have a better chance at winning if I try and save some gold, die basically, and then usually one of the 2 players will realize the other one is stronger, because that's how free-for-all is. I mean, there's always a strongest player, and if you're in a 3-way and one of the players dies or goes down to 2 buildings, they're not going to be much help to you. If you're the weaker of the other 2, eventually someone realizes, I'm weaker, I'm going to lose the game if it goes to a 1 versus 1 right now, so I need to help the 3rd player who's basically dead so that they help me. And if you pick the point where that happens and then survive long enough to rebuild, then I think you can put yourself in a better position to win. And it really comes down to the understanding of the game for me, and I think that's honestly like my best strength, and how I win games like that so much is I can see the state of the game, and I can usually tell this person's the strongest, they have more gold, maybe they have better heroes, they have a really strong base, something to where I can pick which person I need to help to the point where I can rebuild. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a strategy that actually you and Renault really are both very successful at doing. I think it really has a lot to go back to that even keeled temper. I mean, it takes a lot not to just give up, flip out, decide that you've wasted all this time. I know myself personally, when I get down to that low, I feel like I just don't care enough to keep rebuilding. So I think that really is quite the impressive skill.
Yeah, and I think, sorry to interrupt, but I think another thing, and yeah, like you said, Renault and I are really good at this, but I know we don't go into the game thinking we need to rebuild because that's the only way we can win. I mean, I think that we both, I'm speaking for him, but we're basically the same person, so I'm going to. I think we both view ourselves as good enough to win without doing that, But if you get put into that position, you don't want to suicide the person that maybe killed you or killed you the most. You want to, you want to keep your cool, and then if that person realizes you're not just going to rage at them and suicide them, they're more likely to keep you alive so that you'll help them. So if you have that kind of temperament, you can use it to your advantage.
And the idea that that's the only way you win is just completely ridiculous. It's the same thing for Renault. I mean, you guys get maybe one win like that a season. It's just those wins are so rare and so few that it seems like you guys are able to pull them off so frequently. So I've taken up a lot of time already. This is our longest game night by far so far. But I just wanted to briefly touch on your shoutcasting with me because that has become kind of a staple of our channel recently, and I suspect some people are kind of interested as to how you got involved with it, how we got paired up. So I figured I'd let people hear your perspective on this. How did you come to start shoutcasting in general? How did you come to start shoutcasting with me? And what are your overall thoughts and impressions on it?
Good question. Well, I enjoy listening to shoutcasts personally. I watch StarCraft 2 professionally still, even though I don't play it anymore. And a reason I watch it is because the shoutcasters add an entertainment value that I find entertaining and I want to watch more of. And I think Warcraft is an entertaining game. I like it more than StarCraft 2. And I think other people think the same way that I do. I think they like listening to shoutcasts, especially if the shoutcasts are done well. We've all listened to a shoutcast that is not great, or like they aren't funny or they're trying to be funny. I don't know, but it's kind of awkward. And I think you have a great shoutcasting kind of personality because you give good analysis, but you also have like a pretty good sense of humor to where you kind of keep the game feeling like even in boring parts, it's not boring. And I think that, I liked shoutcasting with you because I felt like after our first few casts, I was like, hey, we actually have okay chemistry. I think you're better with Pure B. I'm just going to say. But I think that being involved in the free-for-all scene, it just made sense to start shoutcasting. And it kind of goes along with my playstyle. I mean, my playstyle is all about knowing my opponents, knowing having good free-for-all sense, having a good understanding of the game in general. And so that just completely translates to casting, in my opinion, because I'm already, when I'm playing, like shoutcasting in my head, like this player's got 10,000 glory now and he wants me to think he's poor,
Yeah.
or,
Mhm.
So I think that that's knowledge that other people want to hear. So it just translates really well to shoutcasting. I can look at a game and be like, in my head, I think I know what people listening are going to think is interesting or what they're going to want to know. So I guess my last thought about it was I loved listening to professional gamers, whether it's StarCraft 2 or Warcraft 3. I loved listening to them shoutcast because they would give insight that you wouldn't normally think of. And I'm not that level, but in a way, I think that's kind of what my aim is when I shoutcast. Is I want to try to give insight that your average gamer might not think of. So I think that's why I pair well with you because I'm not a very good play-by-play.
Yeah,
and I
well,
don't have the sense of humor of Pure B, so I have to add something.
I certainly think that you provide a very good knowledge base to the game. I mean, I don't keep up with the game nearly as much as you do now, so you're always welcome here. I'm always happy to have you. As I mentioned earlier, we will have a new shoutcast out that I think everybody's going to greatly enjoy. That'll come out on Sunday, so just 3 days after this. And as always, Mog, thank you for your time. You spent 3 hours on Skype with me tonight, all told, so certainly appreciate it. We hope that you all enjoyed listening. Make sure to subscribe and stay tuned for next week's game night. Catch y'all later.
Thanks for having me. Bye.